How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over my full leveling guide for the Deadeye on a bow character. I did cover this already on using gas grenade, but I do know the most popular builds for Deadeye right now are actually on bows. They're both magnetic salvo and gas arrow. So I wanted to make sure I covered a leveling for that. I will have a written Maxroll guide up for this as well, but this is the video going to be here in video form. First things first, you are going to start off with Lightning Arrow. This is the skill you start with, and you are going to basically use this, and then the first skill you are going to end up cutting with your first second skill gem that you get is going to be Lightning Rod. The way that Lightning Rod works is anytime you use a lightning skill near this, or a lightning skill that chains, it can basically chain to the Lightning Rod and trigger that extra lightning rod. So as you can see here, as I fire the lightning arrow into this, it is chaining off of the lightning rods as well. So what you do, again here, you equip the scatter shot support onto your lightning rod, and then for your lightning arrow, you just put martial tempo along with your lightning infusion, and then you are basically just throwing down your lightning rod with increased area of effect on it as well. You're throwing down a few of those, and then you're just using your lightning arrow into that basically for extra damage. So it's nothing special. You don't need to worry too much about using any extra gems, anything like that. You do end up getting the freezing salvo some point around level 12 or so. You end up wanting to use electrocuting arrow somewhere along there gets used as well. The only other big thing that you do want to ensure that you are picking up is you do need to make sure you would buy a flame wall with one of your level 2 skill gems, because you want to buy it right away with your level 2 skill gems or your level 1 skill gems, because of the fact that you are going to end up needing this later on when you do make the swap to gas arrow at level 22, and you're not going to want to use or have to get the int required in order to actually do that at level 22. For the tree of the build itself, you are pathing just at first here through this projectile speed and attack damage, along with this projectile damage here. Then you are pathing backwards over here in order to get the movement speed. Early on, you can actually just path straight through here to the flasks over to the movement speed, and then you can just basically change this later if you do need that extra flask recovery early on. You end up pathing straight down here. You aren't going to grab this quiver notable yet. You will end up taking this up here, where you are pushing into this for your chance to shock as well as extra damage early on. You take this movement speed. You don't have to worry about this evasion here yet, and you are going to be moving down here, grabbing catalysis here, grabbing your maiming strike, grabbing your acceleration, and then you are going to end up moving yourself up over here in order to get coming calamity. You will use, again, if you end up getting a second spirit gem, you'll want to use Herald of Thunder with this early on, but if not, you just use it with Herald of Ash when you swap over to gas arrow. And then for the tree itself, acrobatics, you don't take this early on. You wait until you actually get your points here into your evasion wheels a bit. Wait till you get your evasion rating upwards into like the 60 something percent at least, based off of everything you have, and then you pick a back row at that point. So you'll pretty much want to be wearing only evasion gear at that point. And then once you have that, then you end up picking a back row, but don't pick it up too early, or it will end up giving you a downside. You can push faster over here into mental toughness if you are having mana issues, or if you want to avoid having to run inspiration early on. The faster you get this, the better off your mana will end up being overall. Then we are again pushing into Falcon Technique over here, and then we end up pushing down this last tree over here towards the very end of the campaign. I will end up posting a Maxroll guide of this. There will be a full written Maxroll guide going into it. Again, for the Ascendancy, we are taking Gathering Winds first, and then I went straight into Wind Ward. As you get your third Ascendancy, you can actually swap off Wind Ward at that point to go fully into Endless Munitions, and then pick Wind Ward back up for your fourth if you feel like you're lacking the damage. So you know, at that point you can unspec these once you finish your third Ascendancy, but that's entirely up to you. The Windward extra defense is probably honestly still going to be recommended just because of the extra, you know, survivability requirement for campaign and for everything else, with everything being a single portal now. The other thing I want to talk about here is, again, in the later parts of using the lightning arrow leveling, you do end up putting on electrocuting arrow along with your freezing salvo. The electrocuting arrow here allows all of your lightning damage to inflict electrocute, which is a 5-second long stun. So you take advantage of this. You do have to reapply it. You'll see the debuff on there will start to fade as soon as electrocute is no longer active. And then basically you can combine this along with freeze to basically have different sources of crowd control, really long crowd control rather. So you stack this. This is basically all that ends up getting added to your lightning rod and lightning arrow rotation. But you can see here again with the freeze already for a long CC, and then we have the electrocute for a second long CC. This allows us to quickly and easily dispatch any bosses without having to rely too heavily on defense. I was messing around with Herald of Thunder here. That's actually pretty unnecessary, to be honest. You can honestly just be using your Wind Ward, or your basically your Wind Ward thing at this point, which is going to be what I will end up recommending in the actual written guide of this as well. As you first transition onto your gas arrow build, you're going to want to run gas arrow with Scattershot along with the fire infusion, because the majority of all your damage you're going to be doing is going to end up being fire damage. If you have primal armament, you can put that on there as well. That works fine. You will want that in the future. Later on, you will end up wanting to take off fire infusion. But basically, the core of the build is you are throwing down your poison, your gas arrows rather, and then when the enemy is ignited by any means, the easiest means being flame wall, which is why you purchased this earlier, is that will basically cause all of the poison arrows, or gas arrows rather, to explode instantly in this large explosion that you're seeing on the screen. This combos very well. It is a nice, comfy playstyle. You don't have to really be thinking about much. The positioning doesn't have to worry about things too much. And then this does allow you to basically just, again, have a comfy 2-button playstyle. You can already add in a shield charge into your build here if you want some extra movement skills. You can add that in. And then if you want to have a shock in your build, you can actually run Stormcaller Arrow along with Overcharge, and along with just some extra shock duration on there to basically give yourself a 35% shock that you can utilize early on. I wasn't actually utilizing here, I was just playing with a friend, and we were kind of doing stuff, and when we were leveling, this was early stuff. I wasn't bothering to try to like min-max my character too much because it wasn't really mattering for what we were doing. The playstyle solo wasn't really changing anything between solo and duo, so yeah. Pretty much the build itself was still doing its same thing. You can still keep on freezing salvo here for just some extra freezes under the build. At some point, when you do end up going to a 4-link version of the gas arrow, you see I was having mana issues. You will end up wanting to run inspiration in your build because it is likely you're going to end up having mana issues as well. I think I'm probably going to adjust the pathing on the tree up towards this some fixes for your mana earlier on than I did myself, because it's going to be something that impacts you a lot, and having to manage your flasks and other things are the things that are most likely to cause people issues where they're actually having issues with a fight and not actually completing the fight in time because of the fact that they are running out of mana, right? So you're seeing me having to auto attack here because we were running low on mana. I luckily did have a little bit of mana leech, so when I was just auto-attacking a bit, I was able to kind of leech my mana back up pretty fast, but it did end up leading to the fight being more annoying than it needed to be, because realistically it should have just been something that we had enough mana and not actually any issues with it. So along with our pathing towards this mana, it doesn't really affect the damage and anything along the way. So it's something that we should probably be working our way towards. Other than that, the next steps that you do have, you can add in a shield charge. You basically just need to get any shield for your offhand, and then get a little bit of strength for a skill gem from back at that level, or make sure you buy a shield charge gem early so that you have to use less strength overall. With that, when you do end up getting the shield charge on there, you will not run any martial tempo or anything on your gas arrow, just because it's already fast enough and you're already having mana issues. So you just throw that onto shield charge along with cooldown recovery, and that gives you this like extra little boost of mobility that you can run all the time. Important thing to keep note of as you are continuing to go through the campaign, it is important that you stay on top of looking for new gear all the time. I can't stress this enough. You do have to go back to town and check the vendor basically every level all the time to ensure that you are always finding bow upgrades, that you're finding quiver upgrades, any upgrades to movement speed boots, any gear basically with better res, etc. Can be a tedious process, but it is something that will pay dividends in the future, especially once you start getting to the point where you are getting these dual string bows, which give you the extra projectile, which does definitely go a long way on this build. You can see this version here that I'm running all the way through Endgame here, all the way through all the cruel stuff. It is including a shield charge on it. It is including a shock collar arrow here that I'm using to get my 35% shock. You can see once this actually goes on, obviously bosses are going to completely melt with that extra shock. It does go a long way, and because of the amount of damage that you have on it, you don't really have to do too much other than literally just fire it off once, and you are going to continue to have any issues. I did end up going with Tailwind for the first points on the Ascendancy, and then also going Wind Dancer for the second points. The extra survivability is massive. It does save you from a lot of things that would otherwise kill you. So there are a few things that I ended up getting saved through that typically would end up killing most of the builds, but because of that extra damage reduction on top of the massive amounts of evasion, even while you are using acrobatics, your damage, or your defense rather, is extremely strong. So that stuff is really nice. The movement speed is really nice, which obviously helps with avoiding boss mechanics as well. Yeah, that's pretty much the build. I will be pushing this build into Endgame. I will be covering Gas Arrow as well as Magnetic Salvo, because the tree that's used is pretty much the same for each. I think there's maybe going to be a difference of like 10 or 20 points, maybe, if that, because pretty much everything is just generic elemental damage, which does cover the damage from Gas Arrow as well as the damage from Magnetic Salvo. So I do believe Magnetic Salvo does have a higher overall damage, potentially, but the playstyle for it, because of the long wind-up delay on Magnetic Salvo, does mean you do end up putting yourself at risk of getting hit a bit more often, just because you end up having to do that, or having to do that long animation, versus Gas Arrow is very quick, and you can run the helmet to just automatically ignite once you actually get into endgame stuff, to where the Radiant helm basically makes it to where you never have to worry about any any flame wall or anything, and you're basically getting to play a one button build with your flame arrow plus your one movement skill, right? By doing this with a actual lightning bow as well, if you get a lightning based bow, you can actually be getting your shocks, or a base like 20% shock rather, without even needing to use the electrocuting or the Stormcaller arrow, I'm going to recommend using the Stormcaller arrow anyways, just because getting that extra 35% shock for basically one little attack in between is really, really nice. So it's a good, nice damage spike there that you can get. So it's definitely worth including into your build. So highly recommend to basically anyone who does want to play the build or does want to play a Deadeye period. So again, the best thing about the leveling, for the bow leveling rather, is the same tree works for regardless of what skill you want to use. You want to change things up and you want to play Ice Shot or something, you can go ahead and do that, or give it a shot. The tree is pretty much going to be the same, so nothing changes there. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and other than that, see you in the next one.